In this lesson, we're going to discuss something called continued stories. If you'd like to follow along, go under the File menu to Open, and in the Sample Files folder, scroll down to 1002, Next and Previous Page Numbers, and just click Open. Next and previous page numbers can be used anywhere that text starts in one frame and then continues in a frame on some other page, like continued stories in magazines or newspapers or even newsletters. The next and previous page number feature solves a very important problem in that they're automatically determining the correct continued on and continued from page numbers. There's nothing worse than going to a continuation of a story and it's nowhere to be found on that page. Why don't we zoom in a little bit closer on our story by going to the zoom tool and just clicking and dragging across the width of the right-hand page of this spread. And you can see that at the end of the frame, which is the beginning of a story, it says "See nuts" on page, and there's nothing there. We're going to add a marker there that is going to put the correct page number of where the story is continued. I'm going to go to my type tool and just get an insert point next to page. And then I'm going to add a space, go under the type menu to insert special character, markers, next page number. And you can see it says page 9. Well, how does it know that? Let me go to my selection tool, and I'm going to select this frame that is the beginning of my story. I'm going to go under the View menu to Extras, Show Text Threads. And you can see from the output of this frame, there's a text thread that is going down a couple of pages to the import of the end of my story. Well, that happens to be on page 9. But how is it figuring that out? Let me go back up to the top of my document. What it is doing is this next page number marker is looking for this text thread. Well, how does it know to look for that particular text thread? Well, the frame that says "See nuts" on page 9 is actually overlapping this frame. What happens if I click on the frame and drag it down so it's no longer overlapping that frame? You can see now it says page 3. It's giving me the current page number because it's not overlapping a frame that has a thread going to another page. Watch what happens if I click on this frame and drag it up over the top of my story. It now goes back to saying page 9. So it works. Let me go to page 9, and we're going to look at the other half of this feature. You can see on page 9, it says nuts continued from page, and there's nothing there. Well, we're going to enter the previous page number marker here, and let's see what happens. I'm going to go under my type menu to insert special character, markers, previous page number. It's doing exactly the same thing in the opposite way. This is finding where the story actually began. What page is the beginning of my story on? And it's working the same way. It's looking for the text thread. Watch what happens if I click on this frame and just move it upward. So it's not overlapping the frame anymore. Instead of the previous page number, now it's giving me the current page number. Let me drag it back down so it's overlapping the beginning of that frame. Well, that's pretty cool. What would happen if I changed where this story is continued? How about I just select everything and drag it over to my left-hand page? And now go back to page 3. I'm going to double-click on page 3 in my Pages panel. And you can see now it says "See nuts" on page 8. So it does work. What would happen if I selected everything at the beginning of my story and dragged it across onto page 2. I'm just going to click and drag it all the way across, snapping right to those margins. Well, it's still picking up that thread. Now let me scroll down to page 8. I'm going to get my Pages panel out of the way and scroll down to page 8, and you can see that the story is now continued from page 2. So it does work. Looks like I'll have to do a little reorganizing of my layout because it's on the facing page, but the marker did do its job. We're going to continue discussing long document features in the next lesson.